I think we're recording. Now, we're going to do Hosea and the rest of the minor prophets. So I thought I've got to have some kind of chart that makes this easier for you. So I found this on the internet. I didn't attribute it. I didn't do this, but when I put this online, I'm going to put the author's name.
You're not going to claim it?
No, I'm not going to claim it. There may be something wrong in there. And I looked and I couldn't see anything, but anyway, and it's color-coded, which I certainly think it makes it easier with stuff. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out is on the left-hand side, it talks about the United Kingdom. Well, David united, there are two kingdoms. There's the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom is always referred to as Israel. The southern kingdom is always referred to as Judah. And David combined them. And in doing that, what he did, the northern kingdom had the Ark of the Covenant, and the southern kingdom had the Tent of Meeting. And remember, he danced nude down the street, and they put the Ark of the Covenant into the Tent of Meeting and combined both kingdoms. And he ruled both kingdoms, and his son Solomon also ruled both. But then, you know, like any good church merger, along came some people who thought, nah, I'm not sure that we ought to be doing that. So Israel, which was comprised of 10 tribes, became the northern kingdom again, and Judah, which had 2 tribes, became the southern kingdom. And you can see on this in teal blue, I think that is, it shows the kings in succession for Israel and also the kings in succession from Judah. Now you'll notice that the line from Judah goes farther than the one in Israel. And part of the reason was, one of these prophets, I'm sure, is going to say, Israel was bad and so God punished them. But, you know, they were the northern kingdom. And guess what was north of them? Babylon.
Babylon and Assyria.
And Assyria. And so it was easier to conquer them because they were a neighboring. You know, it would be easier for us if we wanted to, rather than fighting over in Europe, we could conquer Canada.
Yeah.
In fact, if we tried to conquer Canada, they would all surrender and offer us a plate of poutine. So the southern kingdom tended to last longer, but it did also go into captivity. Now, down the middle, it has the prophets. And you can see that there's Joel and Obadiah, Jonah, Amos, Hosea, Micah. So it shows Isaiah how that compared. It overlapped Hosea and all of Micah. So all of those are the prophets down the center. And it was very interesting. You know, when I saw this, I thought, I was trying to make a chart. Because in the Bible, they're not listed chronologically. I don't know how they figured that listing of the 12, the minor prophets, but, you know, it starts off with Hosea, and, you know, you can see that we should be doing Joel before that.
This would be a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. When I saw this, I thought, I'm not going to sweat this one. I'm not making a chart with the dates, or the listing in the Bible, the chronological dates. Did they prophesy to the northern kingdom or the southern kingdom? And where did they fall in that? And so I just thought this would be a handy thing to, you know, tuck in your Bible.
It's all color-coded.
Pardon?
It's all color-coded.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which is
It
nice.
does have that little guide down at the bottom to know which color is from
Yes.
each group.
Yes.
The legend.
And then that thing about kings of Judah, I think that's kind of good. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
It's wicked.
yeah, they really were, and if you want to work on your pronunciation, just read through those lists and
Oh.
see how many of them you can pronounce. Call Kathy, get her on the phone, and then you read it and she corrects you.
Okay, it's Judah, it's Jeremiah, but there's a little red box. Has anybody got one that can read that?
Yeah, it's just that. No, this classy.
The box to the top,
Left,
Upper
left.
left of
No, it's
Jeremiah.
right
Yeah.
kind of in the center.
I'll have to find out what, I tried, I have my little magnifying glass
Looks
and,
like
and
it starts with an N.
I'll
Nahum?
could be Naaman.
It's like
Because I
trying
don't
to
see
take
him
one of those
anywhere
boxes.
else.
I see an N at the beginning and an M at the end.
That'd be Nahum.
I'll check when I get it online, you know, I can enlarge it and see, but I knew that one was kind of blurred, but the rest are,
They're
Pretty
readable.
decent, yeah.
yeah. So
Well, the
it
rest
gives,
of them don't seem to be written in the boxes,
Some
the little boxes.
so yeah, like Jonah and Amos are outside, you can't fit those names in there, but I just thought it was really fascinating. Because
It is.
It shows in Judah when they had the 70 year in captivity, and then it also shows when the temple was finished and when they were in Babylon. I mean, it really is kind of
That's a
fascinating.
time span, why some are bigger boxes and some are tiny boxes.
Yes. And the kings of Judah, I think it has whether they were a good king or a bad king.
Yeah, I like that, or a mixed bag.
Yes, yeah. The first two were mixed bags, and then there was a good and mixed bag, and then Jehoshaphat is good, but Joram is bad. And, you know, some of them are wicked, and so now remember the kings. The difference between the northern kingdom and southern kingdom also was how the ruler felt their relationship was with God. The northern kingdom, Israel, the ruler, the king, felt he was God's representative on earth. The southern kingdom, the king felt that he was serving at God's pleasure, and God was really in charge. He was just sort of the manager or supervisor. And so I think that made for more peaceful things. And that's why I like the mixed bag, because sometimes they made decisions that were good, sometimes they made decisions that were bad, but they always blamed God. So God gets a lot of credit for stuff that he didn't do. Now, Hosea is an interesting prophet. He is, as it shows there, he is a prophet to the southern kingdom, or to the northern kingdom, Israel. We think he was prophesying between 750 and 722 BC. And there were three things that he is trying to point out in his prophecy. Number one is God suffers because of rebellion. That the people's rebellion causes God to suffer. The second one is God loves unconditionally. God just loves us. And the third one is God forgives completely. Which I think is, those three things are really where we are today in our relationship with God. That God suffers when we're a rebellious people. But he loves unconditionally, and he forgives completely. And that's between God and man. You know, I forgive you, but I won't forget it, and don't you forget that. So let's start off with Hosea. Hosea was called upon to make a very interesting choice. God sent him off to do something that none of us would want to do.
The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beeri, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go, take to yourself an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness, because the land is guilty of the vilest adultery in departing from the Lord." So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call him Jezreel, because I will soon punish the house of Jehu for the massacre at Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of Israel. In that day I will break Israel's bow in the valley of Jezreel." Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call her Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no longer show love to the house of Israel, that I should at all forgive them. Yet I will show love to the house of Judah, and I will save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses or horsemen, but by the Lord their God." After she had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, Gomer had another son. Then the Lord said, "Call him Lo-Ammi, for you are not my people, and I am not your God. Yet the Israelites will be like the sand on the seashore, which cannot be measured or counted. In the place where it was said to them, 'You are not my people,' they will be called sons of the living God. The people of Judah and the people of Israel will be reunited, and they will appoint one leader and will come up out of the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel."
Okay, let's pause there. When God said to Hosea, "Marry a harlot," Hosea had to take a deep breath.
Yes, he did.
And so why would God say that? Well, the Message titles that section, "This Whole Country Has Become a Whorehouse," which I think is an appropriate way of putting it. And God is concerned. Now, who was this Gomer? Well, there's a lot of discussion. Is this an allegory, or is this real? And so we don't know. But it would be believed that Gomer was probably a woman who worked in the temple of Baal. Remember, Baal was always the god they fell back on. You know, Baal was the god of the feel-good god. And they had temple prostitutes. And so that could very well be where he found this woman. And she bears him a son, and then she gives birth again. And it says, Mary Gomer, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then it says, Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. And after she had weaned, Gomer had another son. Now, some commentaries say, you know, it well could be that the first child, Scripture says, Gomer had his son. The Lord said, she conceived and bore him a son. But the next two, it really doesn't say she bore him, Hosea, a son. It just said she had another child. So some say, you know, if she was a prostitute in the temple of Baal, that maybe these weren't his kids. And, they named the daughter Not Loved. The translation would be Not Loved. And the other son, they would call him Not My People.
Oh,
So that kind of, I would say, not my kid. Where was Maury when you really needed to find out who was the baby's daddy?
yeah. Very nice thing to do to the kid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you really have to think, if God loves unconditionally, what's he doing to these kids?
Child abuse.
Yeah,
You said this might be an allegory where these are representative of
Yes.
the things going on in society, not specifically
Yes.
these
so we just don't know, but, it could be an allegory that, we're gonna give you these names, and God is trying to point out, as the messages say, this whole country has become a whorehouse. You are bad people. And it really is, and again, in the message, it says, payday is coming. I'm going to chop Israel's bows and arrows into kindling in the valley of Jezreel. I love that. Payday is coming. And then it says, and Gomer got pregnant again. It doesn't say it's by Hosea. And then after she weaned, no mercy, she got pregnant again and had a son. And God said, name him nobody. You become nobodies to me, and I, God, am a nobody to you. God at this point is very, very unhappy. Now you notice in verse 7, he says, yet I will show love to Judah, and I will save them. He was going to still protect the southern kingdom. This prophecy is aimed at the northern kingdom only.
But then in 10 and 11, he brings them back together,
Yes.
Judah and Israel.
And that was always kind of the hope of a lot of people, is that they would merge and become one country again. But it didn't happen. All right, let's go into chapter 2.
Sorry, excuse me. Say of your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved one. Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove the adulterous look from her face, and the unfaithfulness from between her breasts. Otherwise I will strip her naked and make her as bare as on the day she was born. I will make her like a desert, turn her into a parched land, and slay her with thirst. I will not show my love to her children, because they are the children of adultery. Their mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. She said, I will go after my lovers, who give me my food and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my drink. Therefore I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so that she cannot find her way. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She will look for them, but not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now. She has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine, and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Therefore I will take away my grain when it ripens, and my new wine when it is ready. I will take back my wool and my linen intended to cover her nakedness. So now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands. I will stop all her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, all her appointed feasts. I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. I will make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. I will punish her for the days she burned incense to the Baals. She decked herself with rings and jewelry, and went after her lovers, but she forgot me. But me she forgot, declares the Lord.
Okay, let's stop there for a minute. Now, who is the she being talked about?
Gomer,
Gomer or the nation.
yeah, the nation.
Israel. See, this is where, if this is an analogy, where you can see where it's more of an analogy because,
Yeah.
the prophecy is, rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Well, that would be Gomer and Hosea, but it's also Israel and their relationship with God. Let her remove the adulterous look from her face, the unfaithfulness from between her breath. Their mother has been unfaithful. She has conceived them in disgrace. She says, I will go after my lovers who give me food and my water, my wool and my linen, my olive oil and my drink. Therefore, I will block her path with thorn bushes. Where the people of Israel, the southern kingdom, are saying, Baal has given us this stuff. Life is good. And now, let's have a party with Baal. Baal is going to provide the wine. Because remember, Baal was the god of the harvest, of fruitfulness. And that's part of the reason why we're talking about Gomer having 3 children. She's bringing forth 3 children. Well, God brings forth those. And he says later on, I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she says were her pay from her lovers. She doesn't realize it's coming from me. Their God, I, Yahweh, am providing them with all the good stuff. And they're saying, oh, Baal is giving us this stuff. And boy, I'll tell you, God is not happy with this. And certainly you could understand why he would be a little put out. These, and this is what happens so often. When times were good, they looked for a good time. When times were bad, they looked for God to save them.
It's no different today.
That's no different today. I mean, that in many ways, that's the way we are as people. I'll tell you, before I had my surgery, that's when I prayed the hardest. Because I was invested in it. It's just, we've got to come to the realization that, God is there all the time, and that if we do great things or receive great things, they're coming from God and not from some other source. And usually that source is, for athletes, them. They jump around and they point to the heaven, and
Yeah.
the first thing they say, I want to thank God, but boy, I'm a good runner.
Yeah.
So, this, I think, enforces the fact that this whole story with Gomer, it's an allegory. That
This story doesn't make the lectionary, does
not very often. No. Let's go on, pick up in verse 14.
Therefore I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her. There I will give her back her vineyards, and will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. There she will sing as in the days of her youth, as in the day she came up out of Egypt. In that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master. I will remove the names of the Baals from her lips. No longer will their names be invoked. In that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and the birds of the air and the creatures that move along the ground. Bow and sword and battle I will abolish from the land, so that all may lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. In that day I will respond, declares the Lord. I will respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth, And the earth will respond to the grain, the new wine, and oil, and they will respond to Jezreel. I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one I called, not my loved one. I will say to those called, not my people, you are my people. And they will say, you are my God.
Okay.
At the second half of verse 10, mine says, you will call me my husband and no longer call me my Baal.
Mine says slave master.
Verse 10.
Second half of verse 10, yes.
Oh, no, I'm on the
That's
wrong
in 16.
one. Sorry.
No, yeah, you're right. No,
My,
it's 16. I can't read my numbers.
Yeah, 16.
Second half of 16. You will
Okay.
call me my husband and no longer call me my Baal.
Okay.
I
And-
don't understand.
well, the translation, I don't know for sure what you read.
Master.
Master?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what the New International Version says, my master. But the message at that time, this is God's message still, you'll address me, dear husband. Never again will you address me, my slave master.
Mine's got a different word in verse 16. ISHI, and will no longer call me Baal.
Okay. The message continues after 16. I'll wash your mouth out with soap and get rid of all the dirty false god names.
Yeah.
That's so not so much a whisper of those names again.
Well, that's what you used to
Yeah.
do.
Baal, let me just clarify because it talks about Baal in the plural. There were several Baal gods. He had kind of a pantheon, and each god had sort of a different responsibility, but they all together made the Baal. Pardon?
Oh, just talking to myself.
Oh.
The Baals.
Yeah. So when we read this, does this remind you of any other prophecy we might have read?
I want to say it's Jeremiah wasn't very well liked, and I'm thinking Jeremiah was somewhat to this.
My favorite passage, Jeremiah 31:31. I will write their laws in their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
That, what Hosea is saying is, I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice. And that's what Jeremiah in that chapter 31 is saying. We're done with all this other stuff. Now we're going to have a good relationship. The message says, and then I'll marry you for good, forever. I'll marry you true and proper in love and tenderness. Yes, I'll marry you and neither leave you nor let you go. You'll know me, God, for who I really am. So, even though God is not happy with the southern or the northern kingdom, even though he's not happy with Israel, he's hoping they'll come around. And what's going to help bring them around? The prophecy. The prophet. So, shall we move on?
3 is short.
If we're not careful, we may get through Hosea today.
It's 14 chapters.
Well, we'll just file 2 of them by title.
3 is short, though.
The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethek of barley. Then I told her, you are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will live with you. For the Israelites will live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stones, without ephod or idol. Afterward, the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling to the Lord and to his blessings in the last days.
Okay. You know, it's kind of interesting, you know, when the Lord says, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another man and is an adulterer. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, even though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. You know, even though I'm sure that not all the women were having relations with men who are not their husbands, but it does say that, you know, when you're married, you find forgiveness in your heart, and this would be the ultimate forgiveness. If you can forgive your spouse for being an adulteress, I mean, that's big time forgiving. And what God is saying, that's how much I love you. You know, I'll overlook all those sacred raisin cakes you've been eating, although I'm not sure it sounds all that good. But
Should have
Does
said chocolate
anybody
chip
else?
cookies.
yeah. Well, they may want to leave Bale if they get chocolate chip cookies.
Does anybody else's translation say something besides raisin cakes? Seems like kind of an odd thing to me.
Well, the message says, then God ordered me start all over. Love your wife again, your wife who's in bed with her latest boyfriend, your cheating wife. Love her the way I, God, love the Israelite people, even as they flirt and party with every god that takes their fancy. I mean, and was this a new thing? No. This started from the time they were in Egypt and before. These were hard people. Thankfully, we're not that way. You know, this God is, even though this is a prophecy to the northern kingdom, it's a prophecy to us also. Because we can be led astray by chocolate chip cookies or raisin cakes or, you know, the latest Netflix movie, or, I mean, sometimes when life is good, we're more easily led astray. I think oftentimes that's why when they put, when people go into a convent or a monastery where there's no talking, I think part of that is to remove temptation from them. Because, you know, you're sitting around and having coffee with someone and talking to them, and they say, hey, let's go to the casino. Or, you know, and I'm not saying go to the casino is bad, but, you know, it's more easily to be led astray if you're talking. So if you're taking the vow of silence and everybody wears the same robes, that takes a lot of temptation away.
It also eliminates a lot of gossip.
Yes, it does. And, you know, it's a struggle for people. All right.
I never taught any of this in Sunday school.
No.
It wasn't in the lectionary?
No, I think there's maybe only one passage that we get from Hosea.
Is that the D lectionary?
Yeah. Oh, let's see what the charge is against Israel.
Father, Stan
Yeah.
has a
Oh.
question. Can I ask an interesting thing here on 3 verse 5? It says, afterwards the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling to the Lord and his blessing in the last day. And my footnote says David their king refers to the time of Messiah's rule, which would be in the very last days. So it's kind of a prophecy about the upcoming Messiah too.
It very well may be. Because we know David, their king, was long gone. I mean, we've had Solomon, we've had the division of the two kingdoms, and we're way down. We're actually, if you look at that chart, Hosea is right there at the end of Israel. They're going to be conquered. So I'm not sure if saying David their king is more, be like saying it'll be like the good old days. That we'll all be united under one. But you can't dismiss the fact that it may mean or have some inclination towards a lineage of David, being Jesus, serving as their king. And that could have happened with at Jesus' birth.
Rather than
Not
like
necessarily
the end of time.
not necessarily the end of times, but it would be, when it talks about in their last days, I think he may be referring to the end of the northern kingdom of Israel. What's the little note say? Yeah, Assyria defeats Israel. 10 northern tribes go into captivity. Lands repopulated with Samaritans. So, any other questions?
The last verse reminded me of the prodigal son. Come trembling
Yes.
and to the blessings.
Good. Yeah, it is.
Should I go?
Yeah, I like that prodigal son. I hadn't thought about that. But that's,
It just popped right out at me, like, because it's kind of, he was probably running, trembling to
yeah.
his dad. Okay, should I go?
Yes, please.
Hear the word of the Lord, you Israelites, because the Lord has a charge to bring against you who live in the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There is only cursing, lying, and murder, stealing, and adultery. They break all bounds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this, the land mourns, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field and the birds of the air and the fish of the sea are dying. But let no man bring a charge, let no man accuse another, for your people are like those who bring charges against a priest. You stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you. So I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priests. Because you have ignored the law of your God, I will also ignore your children. The more the priests increased, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glory for something disgraceful. They feed on the sins of my people and relish their wickedness. And it will be like people, like priests. I will punish both of them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. They will eat but not have enough. They will engage in prostitution but not increase, because they have deserted the Lord to give themselves to prostitution, to old wine and new, which take away the understanding of my people. They consult a wooden idol and are answered by a stick of wood. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray. They are unfaithful to their God. They sacrifice on the mountaintops and burn offerings on the hills, under oak, poplar, and terebinth, where the shade is pleasant. Therefore your daughters turn to prostitution, and your daughters-in-law to adultery.
Okay, let's pause there for just a minute. There's a couple things that I don't like the way he's bad-mouthing priests, but be that as it is.
Other priests.
I think that from now on, call me pastor. I like the way the message starts off chapter 4. And says, attention, all Israelites, God's message. Announcing. God indicts the whole population. No one is faithful. No one loves. No one knows the first thing about God. All this cussing and lying and killing, theft and loose sex, sheer anarchy, one murder after another. And because of all this, sounds like San Francisco, doesn't it? And because of all this, the very land itself weeps. Everything is grief-stricken. Animals in the field, birds in the wing, even the fish in the sea are listless, lifeless.
Sounds like he needs another big flood.
Yeah. But then he says, but don't look for someone to blame, no finger pointing. You, priests, are the one in the dock. You stumbled around in broad daylight, and then the prophets take over and stumble all night. Your mother is as bad as you. Your mother wears army boots. My people are ruined because they don't know what's right or true, because you turned your back on knowledge. I've turned my back on you priests. Okay. What's the problem with the priests? They were letting people get away with it.
Yeah. No different.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't saying, hold on, that's not what God calls us to do.
They were probably joining in.
Pardon?
They were probably joining in.
Well, they were, yeah. And there was a payoff to them. If you say things that people don't want to hear, they're not going to support you. So, that's why false prophets start popping up. And it says, the priests, stumble around in broad daylight, and then the prophets take over and stumble all night.
Sounds
prophets
like they
don't-
need some of those evangelists in the big tent.
Yes,
We
that's
have on
right.
TV.
And and it said, and the more priests there were, the more they sinned against me. And if you stop and think, if you go into some small towns, there could be 15 different churches.
Yeah.
The more churches, but I'll tell you, on Friday night and Saturday night, the bar is full. I mean, it's kind of like, look at how many denominations we have. How many churches are, and yet people still sin. And a lot of times, people will leave one church because that church is not doing it the way they think it ought to be done. So are they looking at what God calls them to do, or are they looking at what they think they ought to do? I had a good friend back in Michigan, and his brother-in-law was pastor of, I think it was a Church of God or Church of Christ, one of those. And a bunch of them got all upset, didn't think he was preaching the Lord's way, and they went off and started another church. And then they didn't like the guy who became pastor there. They went and joined another church and tried to convert that church, and they kicked out all the people who used to be there. And they were kind of, every time I had, this is a nice guy. I'd have lunch with him and I'd say, what are you guys doing? You're shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. You're making this stuff up as you go along. Where's God? Find God. Do God's will. And here, this prophecy says, the more priests there were, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glorious God for something disgraceful. They fed on the sins of my people and relished their wickedness. And it will be, like people like priests, I will punish both of them for their ways. I will repay them for their deeds. They will eat but not have enough. They will engage in prostitution but not flourish, because they have deserted the law. Many people consult a wooden idol. The diviner's rod speaks to them. In the message, this section is titled, They Make a Picnic Out of Religion. Wine and whiskey leave my people in a stupor. You notice it doesn't say single malt scotch. Wine and whiskey leave my people in a stupor. They ask questions of a dead tree. Those wooden idols, a dead tree. Expect answers from a sturdy walking stick. Drunk on sex, they can't find their way home. They've replaced their God with their genitals. This is why we don't read this in church.
Or Sunday school.
Yeah.
I think I ought to use the message
Yeah.
for a lot of these passages.
They worship on the top of mountains, make a picnic out of religion. Under the oaks and elms on the hills, they stretch out and take it easy. Before you know it, your daughters are whores, your wives of your sons are sleeping around, and I'm not going after your whoring daughters or the adulterous wives of your sons. It's the men who pick up the whores that I'm after, the men who worship at the holy whorehouse. Stupid people, ruined by whores.
I'm glad the men didn't get mentioned.
And then verse 15, it just summarizes this so succinctly. You've ruined your own life, Israel, but don't drag Judah down with you.
Right.
Don't go to the sex shrine at Gilgad, and don't go to that sin city Bethel. Don't go around saying God bless you and not mean it, taking God's name in vain. Israel is stubborn as a mule. How can God lead him like a lamb to open pasture? Ephraim is addicted to idols. Let him go. When the beer runs out, it's sex, sex, and more sex. Bold and sordid debauchery. How they love it. The whirlwind sounds like a fraternity party. The whirlwind has them in its clutches. Their sex worship leaves them finally impotent. I think you hadn't finished chapter 4, had you?
No,
you
we were
went
verse
through
14.
You finished it.
I was on a roll there. Go ahead, go ahead
I
and
forgot where I started.
Verse 14.
Verse 14.
Okay.
I will not punish your daughters when they turn to prostitution, nor your daughters-in-law when they commit adultery, because the men themselves consort with harlots and sacrifice with shrine prostitutes. A people without understanding will come to ruin. Though you commit adultery, O Israel, let not Judah become guilty. Do not go to Gilgal, do not go up to Beth Aven, and do not swear as surely as the Lord lives. The Israelites are stubborn like a stubborn heifer. How then can the Lord pasture them like lambs in a meadow? Ephraim is joined to idols, leave him alone. Even when their drinks are gone, they continue their prostitution. The rulers dearly love shameful ways. A whirlwind will sweep them away, and their sacrifices will bring them shame.
okay, this is really this is down the same path that Amos goes. That the people in the northern kingdom, their rulers went bad. They got sucked up in all of this. You know, people were giving them gold, and you know they were wearing fancy rings, and there were people dying of starvation on the street. And this is not what God calls us to do. It's no different than, you know, when churches today ignore outreach to people who are in need. You know, open the door, there's food there. We try to feed the hungry. You know, most of the churches I know will do that. I mean, this is what we're called to do. We're not called to be isolated and not care about the people who are in need.
Did these prophets kind of offend some of the people that were hearing the prophecies?
Oh yeah, well, remember Jeremiah, they threw him in a well and put him in stocks, and I mean, it really, they were not invited to the A parties. I don't even think they were invited to the B or C parties, because they were calling people out. And you know, and Hosea is a little bit more blunt than the rest. You know, Hosea is saying, your daughters are whores. you know, I
And
mean,
daughters-in-law too.
yeah, and the daughters-in-law are, you know, they're running around. So,
But the men.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
you
men
can't
are
really be a
too.
whore if there's nobody to.
Yeah, but he made them impotent.
Hmm?
In the end, he made them impotent. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah. So, well, I guess we're going to be able to push this to at least 2 weeks. So we'll pick up with chapter 5 next time. Thank you.